Something strange is going on in that Carlos Mendoza has made some really good moves in 2025, but also some really questionable ones. And this could be a disaster moving forward for the New York Mets. But the skip could also be flawless, and this could be great. So Met fans don't really know how to react because it could be really good for the New York Mets, or really bad, or something in the middle. So stay tuned only on Mets Digest to hear everything about Carlos Mendoza. I'm your host today, Mike Duda. I'll take you through all of it. But first, we have to talk about some subscribers, and that being that 67.8% of you that watch these videos aren't one. So please do me a favor, do us a favor here at Mets Digest, and hit that free subscribe button. That way we can bring content to you about the amazing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into this. And first and foremost, disclaimer, it is very difficult to be a manager in the MLB. So a lot of props goes to Carlos Mendoza and all the other managers out there for that matter. But I think overall Mendy has done a really good job with this team. I'm going to mainly be highlighting the negatives that I've seen over the past couple of weeks with Mendy, but for the most part, I love who he is as a player's manager. He's someone that always steps up for his players. You can see that when he gets thrown out of games, particularly on Sunday, July 6th against the Yankees. He stood up for Luis Torrens, who was getting screwed by an MLB umpire, and he got ejected because of it. He did my favorite thing, as you've heard in that video, if you check that out, about the MLB umpires, the last video that I posted earlier today. I love it when managers draw the line in the dirt to show where that pitch is. I think that's awesome. It's one of my favorite parts of baseball, and I'm happy that Mendy did it. I like who he is as a player's manager, always stepping up for his players. That's not just with umpires. That's in the post game, always saying, hey, that move's on me, that one's on me, that is not on this player. So I love that. I also, for the most part, really like what Mendoza has done with the lineup as well. Overall, I support most pinch hitters and pinch runners that he goes for in games, and also the lineup changes have all been great. First, when he moved Francisco Lindor to the leadoff spot last year in 2024. That was incredible. This year, moving Juan Soto down to the 3 and Alonso to the 4, respectively. I mean, Juan Soto has been an MVP candidate over the past month. He's been the best player in baseball over the past month, so that obviously worked. And also Brandon Nimmo. Moving Brandon Nimmo to the leadoff spot and Francisco Lindor to the 2. It's now what Steve Cohen likes to say, the Big Four. The Big Four are really there. So overall, Mendy has done a great job. But there's been some questionable things that he's done, particularly with the pitching staff. And we're going to turn this over to the experts, starting off with Danny Abriano of SNY. Keep in mind, this was a while ago. This was in a David Peterson start on June 17th in Atlanta. The Mets ended up losing this game 5-4 in 10 innings. And this was during the worst stretch of the New York Mets season, as Abriano, after the game, said, quote, "It can be argued that it would have been a relatively uneventful and smooth win in the bottom of the 8th inning had been handled just a bit differently, aka better by the manager." With David Peterson in the midst of another strong performance on the heels of a shutout his last time out, he was left in to start the 8th against Atlanta's number 9 hitter, Nick Allen, which was sensible. So, why did Mendy leave him in this particular game? Well, he says, quote, "Especially with the way he was throwing the ball. You got a 3-run lead there. He's at 82 pitches with a 9-hole hitter. He walked him there. You still like your chances with getting a ground ball." He was getting a lot of ground balls that night. And he ended up walking the batter, and that being Nick Allen, and Abriano disagrees. He says, quote, "Once Peterson lost Allen, who came into the at-bat with a 553 OPS, which is really bad, to the walk, though, his night should have been over. Instead, Peterson was left in to face the dangerous Ronald Acuna Jr., who has been incredible this year, who ripped a single to put runners on first and second with none out. At that point, Mendoza came out of the dugout to remove Peterson while bringing Reed Garrett in. Now, what was the result? According to Abriano, quote, "When the inning started, Garrett was not even beginning to warm up." That makes sense. Peterson was at 82 pitches. I don't think you should have had anyone going in the bullpen. Even though your starter's entering the 8th inning, if he's only at 82 pitches, I don't think you even need to get up the bullpen. But had to happen quickly. That didn't happen until right after Allen walked, when Garrett hurriedly began to toss. He had just over 2 minutes to get ready in the bullpen before being summoned. Garrett allowed a single to the first batter he faced before getting the next 2 outs, with Marcell Ozuna up and the count 2-2. Done a video on this. This was actually when Francisco Alvarez got called down to AAA. I dived into this at bat really in depth, but Garrett was one pitch away from escaping the jam, but Ozuna struck a base-clearing double the left field line on a splitter that wasn't down enough. So Mendoza obviously making a poor decision to keep David Peterson in this particular game. And the reason why I'm bringing up this game that was from a while ago, I know it was, but the reason why I'm bringing it up is because this isn't the first time that this has happened with Carlos Mendoza. Let's go to July 4th. The Mets, again, they ended up winning this game against the New York Yankees. But Carlos Mendoza made a very questionable decision to pull Justin Hagenman after just 73 pitches. And then, subsequently, with Austin Warren in the game, Jason Dominguez hit his second home run of the game, a 2-run shot to make it 5-3 Yankees. And I was honestly flipping out when this happened. I wasn't happy because he pulled Hagenman too early, like he typically does with these pitchers. And as a result, Warren gave up a home run, and the Mets gave up the lead. Now, they ended up coming back. They ended up winning this game in a really, really good way. It was a good win, but that was a questionable decision from Carlos Mendoza. Now, let's turn to last night. This is the final score from last night, and notice that 6th inning where the Mets gave up 4 runs. The O's scored 4 runs. Yeah, all 4 of them were charged to Clay Holmes, the starting pitcher, because here is how his inning went. And keep in mind, he was cruising through the first 5. Just one mistake on a 2-out base hit to give up that 1 run in the 3rd, but this is what happened. He started off the inning with a hit by pitch on an 0-2 count to Jackson Holliday. That's never a good sign. Then he gave up a base hit to Jordan Westburg. And at that moment, I was definitely thinking you got to pull Holmes, especially after he gave up another base hit to Gunnar Henderson. At that point, you had to have taken out Clay Holmes, but Mendy decided to keep him in. And subsequently, Ryan O'Hearn hit a 2 RBI double, and then Ramon Laureano followed it up with a 2 RBI base hit of his own, and Holmes gets charged with all 4 of those runs in addition to the one he gave up in the 3rd, so his stat line looks way worse, and the Mets ended up having a big hole that they had to climb. Now, they ended up winning because the Big Four, like I was mentioning earlier, did a great job, but they probably shouldn't have won that game if it wasn't for some late offensive heroics, because Mendoza made a really, really bad move to take out Clay Holmes early. And unfortunately, this isn't the first time that Clay Holmes has been taken out too late, I should say. Look at these ERAs. He is great in the 1st inning, even better in the 2nd, good in the 3rd, good in the 4th. In the 5th, he gets a little questionable, but an 8.89 ERA in the 6th inning, an ERA north of 1.6, opposing batting average near 280. It's very simple. Clay Holmes is not a pitcher who can get in the 6th inning. In fact, JJ Yastrzemski last night on Sportsnet on SNY was talking about this. He would rather have 5 quality innings out of Clay Holmes, 5 dominant innings out of Clay Holmes, and then you go to the bullpen rather than trying him in the 6th, because more times than not, it doesn't work when you test Holmes in the 6th. And look, I'm someone who would rather have a starting pitcher go longer rather than shorter. I hate when guys get pulled early, but Carlos Mendoza has a very, very bad habit of leaving guys in for just simply too long. So, in addition to that, let's talk about some more bullpen flaws from the skip in Mendoza. First and foremost, with Zach Pop. Now, we'll go to that Sunday game where the Mets lost to the Yankees 6-4, and this time we're going to turn to Jeremy Nielsen of Yahoo Sports, who says, quote, "Speaking of scoreless innings, the Yankees failed to scratch anything across opener Chris Davinsky, but when manager Carlos Mendoza brought in righty Zach Pop rather than scheduled bulk man Brandon Waddell to start the 3rd, Austin Wells greeted him with a pop of his own." Now, originally, I disagreed with the move for Davinsky to come out, but upon further research, Davinsky has never gone more than 2 innings, so I understand why he was only pitching for 2 innings. But, like it says here, why was Brandon Waddell not coming in the game? Waddell, in fact, was actually supposed to start the game. That's what the rumors were, until the Mets turned to Davinsky later and said Waddell would get a bulk inning game out of the bullpen. So, what was the subsequent result? Obviously, Austin Wells went deep. Wells smashed a down-and-in fastball to the second deck in right for his 2nd homer in as many games and a 1-0 Yankee lead. Mendoza tried to steal some outs with Pop in the 4th. Again, he's keeping him in too long, but paid the price for it. Immediately, Giancarlo Stanton and Cody Bellinger both collected hits to put men on the corners with nobody out, and a fielder's choice from Anthony Volpe brought Stanton home for a 2-0 lead. Then, DJ LeMahieu reached out and poked an infield hit to the left side, cornering the bases again. And then Pop was pulled, so obviously he was let in way, way, way too long. again, that's a common theme with Carlos Mendoza, and this time he was doing it with the bullpen, and he turned to the wrong guy. I go back to last night's game. I know it worked. Huascar Brazoban was electric. He threw 11 pitches, 8 of them were strikes, had a clean inning, 1-2-3, stranded the ghost runner, and the Mets won. I personally thought you should have gone back to Edwin Diaz. Mendoza put Diaz in the bottom of the ninth. Keep in mind, that's a non-save situation because the Mets were tied in the bottom of the ninth, and I hate closers coming in non-save situations, so I disagree with Mendy there, and then I disagree with him again because after just 10 pitches in the ninth, he ended up going to Brazoban instead of Diaz. Now again, it all worked out, so in hindsight, it's a little bit hard to question the moves, but I'm just taking you through my thought process during the moment. So, let's hear another thing. Carlos Mendoza last year was great in not pitching to Aaron Judge. This year, he decided to do so, and it backfired on him heavily. We'll go back to that game from Sunday. This time, it's Mark Powell of Fansided who says, quote, while some tough calls against them in the ninth inning were frustrating, the Mets should blame their own strategy, along with several clutch moments from the Yankees themselves, for such a painful defeat. It was Mendoza who optioned not to intentionally walk Aaron Judge in the fifth inning with 1 on and 1 out. Judge routinely disposed of a Brandon Waddell pitch as a result, ended up hitting a 2-run shot, and then the Yanks went up 5-0, and then it was kind of out of reach for the Mets. They did have some fight in the later innings, and they ended up losing by what? 2 runs. What was Aaron Judge's homer? A 2-run homer. So, in the postgame, of course, Mendoza was asked how much, if at all, did you contemplate walking Judge in that spot in the fifth, and he responded, quote, obviously I did, but it's not like the matchup that was behind him either. Not like I like that matchup either. You're down 3 in the fourth inning. Pick your poison there. Even though it's Aaron Judge, but given where we were at bullpen-wise and down 3, I wasn't going to do it. So, good for Mendoza. He stood up for his own decision. He basically said, we didn't want to face Giancarlo Stanton, who was looming on deck, and you had Cody Bellinger that was also in the mix. 2 very, very good hitters, 2 guys that are very capable of hitting home runs. But again, it's Aaron Judge. It is the best baseball player right now in the sport. I know Ohtani goes and does two-way, but the best offensive hitter easily in professional baseball. I don't know why you don't walk him. Mendoza did it last year, and he was one of the only managers to do so, and then he refused to do it here. So again, another questionable move for Mendy. Last thing I want to do is go back to that night on the 17th because Abriano continues to talk about another questionable move, this time with the hitters. He says, quote, another questionable move by Mendoza was sticking with designated hitter Jared Young. Remember him before he got demoted? In the 10th inning. With the game tied 4-4 and the free runner on second base to start the frame, Young, who had 4 hits in his last 26 at-bats when his time at the plate started, led off. Young had looked overmatched all game, striking out twice, and he struck out for a 3rd time, leading off the 10th. The obvious choice would have been to pinch hit for Young with Starling Marte, who has been hot, reaching base 13 times in his last 29 plate appearances, and who has a career full of experience in big spots, and a guy that knows how to bunt. I don't understand why managers don't do this, and it's not just Mendy. It's managers across the league. Why don't you bunt the ghost runner over and then tell your next guy to hit a ground ball to the right side, or tell your guy if the infield is in, hit a fly ball, then you get a run, and then you likely win the game. But they don't do it. I don't know why. Managers just don't do it. One last thing I want to do is turn to last night's game. Again, it worked out well, but look at this box score and look at the pinch hitting. I think there was a ripple effect here from a bad move that Carlos Mendoza made, and that was to pinch hit Mark Vientos for Jesse Winker in the 6th inning to face a lefty. A left-handed pitcher came in, and the Mendoza wanted the lefty out of there. He wanted Winker out of there. Winker hits righties much better than lefties, and Vientos can hit the lefties. So I understand the thought process behind it, but I think it was way too early to bring out your designated hitter, to take him out, and also a guy who's just returning, who you were so excited for his return in Jesse Winker. Subsequently, a pinch runner in Tyrone Taylor was needed for Brett Beatty in the 9th with just him on, just Taylor on, and 1 out. That ended up working. I'm not questioning that move because he stole a base and he ended up almost helping the Mets score a run that inning. But later in the 10th, Travis Jankowski then pinch hit for Mark Vientos. Now, I actually called that move, and I actually was very, very happy with that move because I wanted to see a bunt. Again, you had a runner on second, and I think there was a runner on first as well. Bunt him over, do the right thing there. But the problem is, now you've used 3 out of your 4 bench guys. Who's the only guy left on the bench with Luis Torrens starting? Hayden Senger. So, you cannot pinch hit for Luis Torrens in that situation. If he didn't use Vientos for Winker, and you have Winker in that situation instead of Vientos, you can pinch hit Jankowski, and then you have Vientos, who you can pinch hit in the Terren spot, and then bring in Kodai Senga for the bottom of the 10th defensively. So, a ripple effect of questionable moves in the lineup from Carlos Mendoza on that front. So go ahead in the comments, let me know, what do you think of Carlos Mendoza? Has he had some really questionable decisions? I definitely think he has, although I support him overall and think he's a very, very good manager. There has been a lot of questionable moves, some of which I highlighted in that video. So let me know if you agree down in the comment section down below. I'm not saying to fire Carlos Mendoza. I just want to bring up the point that some of these moves are questionable. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have for you in today's video. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. And let's go Mets.